Good evening and welcome to 1010 News, your top 10 news in 10 minutes. I'm Andy Hong. 2 days ago here in Irvine, the unthinkable happened. The freshman at Woodbridge High School was arrested for allegedly stabbing a classmate. The school did not go in lockdown, but the suspect was arrested within the hour of the incident. The student who was stabbed was in critical condition when he was first taken to the hospital. He is now fortunately more stable. According to Irvine Police Department spokeswoman Farah Imami, the incident was probably triggered by an earlier argument over a cell phone. Sadly, these types of incidents, although not widely reported and not in as large of a scale as the one that happened in Woodbridge, are common among high school students these days, whether it be harm on others or harm on oneself. High school life can be rough, and to those struggling out there, I can only say hold fast. You're much more significant than you can ever imagine. Seems like Wednesday was just a bad day in general. The stabbing in Woodbridge, that enormous AP Psychology pop quiz, and finally the massacre in Paris. 3 gunmen attacked the Paris officer Charlie Hebdo, a magazine that specializes in satirical cartoons, many of which have angered Muslims with its mocking depictions of the Prophet Muhammad. Islamic extremists have attacked Charlie Hebdo before with firebombs, but this time was different. The gunmen specifically hunted for those in the upper echelons of the magazine and killed 12 people, including 2 policemen, a caretaker, and a visitor. This is the biggest post-war terrorist attack in France, and the manhunt for the 2 of the gunmen, the Kouachi brothers, continued for 3 days. According to BBC, 80,000 security forces were deployed throughout the nation in search of the brothers, who were well known to the French intelligence service prior to the incident for being exposed to radicalism in Yemen. The chase came to a dramatic and tragic close today when French police stormed 2 separate hostage sites, a warehouse with the Kouachi brothers, and a kosher market with the gunmen with affiliations to the brothers. All of the gunmen, along with 4 hostages, were killed in the following firefight. French President Francois Hollande thanked the French security forces for putting an end to the gunmen's rampage, but he warned the nation to remain vigilant for future attacks. A separate shooting that killed a French policewoman is confirmed to be unrelated to the Charlie Hebdo massacre. Unfortunately, however, these types of terrorist attacks are all too common in the Middle East. In a police college in Sana'a, the capital of Yemen, at least 38 people were killed in a car bomb attack on Wednesday morning. No group has claimed responsibility for the attack yet, but it is likely that the Al-Qaeda branch in Yemen, which was the group that trained the Paris gunmen, is somehow affiliated with the bombing, as the group has been much more active in recent weeks. America is by no means a safe haven for such attacks, as demonstrated by the Boston Marathon bombing of 2013. 2 years later, suspect Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, the younger brother who survived the firefights with authorities after the bombing, is to go on trial. Giving the 21-year-old a fair trial is no easy task, as it is difficult to find an unbiased jury for such an egregious case. The defense has the cards stacked against it. It can only argue that the younger Tsarnaev was directed and affected by the older brother, Tamerlan Tsarnaev. However, the defense does support Judy Clark, one of America's leading death penalty avoidance specialists. This is no doubt going to be a long and bitter trial. The case of the AirAsia flight that went down over the Java Sea last week is unraveling quickly. We now have an actual footage of the tail section of the plane in the bottom of the sea, and officials claim that they have finally picked up the tracking signals given off by the flight data recorders, more widely known as black boxes, even though they're painted fire engine red. The divers on the scene will need to confirm the claim, but this is nevertheless a step forward in the investigation. Thankfully, the black boxes will continue signaling their location for the next month and can remain water resistant for years. 46 bodies have been recovered so far. The United States relations with Central and South American nations have been mostly sour, but things have been looking up, especially after the historic border opening between the U.S. and Cuba. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro offered a prisoner exchange to the United States between Leopoldo Lopez, a jailed opposition leader in Venezuela, and Oscar Lopez Rivera, a Puerto Rican nationalist held in the U.S. However, the U.S. is none too happy about this offer, as State Department spokeswoman Jen Psaki noticed that President Maduro proposes exiling opposition figures rather than having a discussion about the real concerns and problems facing Venezuela. Yesterday, Honda landed a record fine of $70 million for, according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or the NHTSA, failing to report deaths, injuries, and certain warranty claims to the federal government. Although fines are limited by Congress to $35 million, the NHTSA pulled off the stunt by fining Honda twice with the maximum fee, hence the $70 million figure. Honda responded that they will be compliant with the NHTSA and announced that they had already begun to address their problems. This is not related to the Takata shrapnel-filled airbag controversy, which also needs to be fixed soon. With the coming of the new year, a new fully Republican Congress was sworn in. One of the several issues that they announced in their conservative agenda was getting the 1,700-mile-long Keystone XL pipeline approved by Congress. The goal is now closer than ever to being realized as it is advanced significantly in the Senate. However, President Obama swore that he would veto the bill as soon as it gets to his desk. Obama, on the other hand, did his own thing by proposing that the government should pay for 2 years of community college for every willing and qualified person. We will have to see how that works out. As the gridlock continues, America descends into even more gun violence. Once again in New York City, 2 officers were shot and wounded on Tuesday. This case, however, was not related to racial tensions. The officers were off duty when they quickly responded to an armed robbery and got caught in the fierce firefight between the authorities and the 2 shooters, Jason Polanco and Joshua Kemp. Not only was gun violence a prevailing issue for the past year, but also domestic violence. Yesterday, former FBI Director Robert Mueller released a report of the NFL's performance in looking into the domestic abuse case of Ray Rice, who was captured on video beating his wife in a casino elevator. While Mueller's report indicates that the NFL was probably speaking the truth when they claimed that they had not seen the video of Rice beating his wife, the report gives a scathing criticism of the league's inability to cooperate with law enforcement. Now infamous NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, in a public statement, announced that the NFL accepts Mueller's report as a lesson to be learned. Let's hope that they learned their lesson. Finally, for today's science news, this past Wednesday was a groundbreaking day for antibiotics. There has been a want of antibiotics for the past 30 or so years, and some bacteria have gotten used to many of the antibiotics via evolution. Finally, scientists at Northeastern University in Boston decided to study the behavior of bacteria in soil, which is a source of almost all antibiotics that we have today. By placing soil bacteria in a pot and burying it in soil, the researchers were able to create microbes that were previously impossible to grow in a lab. 25 new antibiotics have been found through this method. And that was 1010 News for this week. I'm Andy Hong. Make sure you like us on Facebook and YouTube. And I'll see you next week with more of your top 10 news of the week. Stay educated.